talking famous people, we're talking stuff. With the
Awesome intro.
Hello, this is
uh,
Talking with Famous People.
um,
Today we got Zach, Alex, Lorenz, and Het,
yeah,
and
yeah.
some people in the chat.
Just before we start recording, we said that, Alex said that, based on his life experience, that he thinks that we should sort of define our own purpose and just work towards what makes we be a good person, etc. Because it makes you feel happy, it makes people around you happy, things like that. And so I was going to ask, should the purpose of society be to leave the political sphere and the individual sphere fertile enough for individuals to develop their own purpose and actualize that? Should that be the purpose of society?
I think the purpose of society is to give people a venue in which to solve conflicts without violence, and then outside of that, I would agree with the rest of that, the fertile ground for people to self-actualize, their purpose and what they want to do in life. But I believe society comes together to keep us from being savages with sticks and fire.
So
Hmm.
to being barbaric and to promote actualization and just advancement of the self.
Yes, and then as individual cells move forward, then so does the collective
Yep.
of people together.
Hmm. I think that I would say the basis of society, not to imply that there's some sort of like contract, but I think that the original purpose of society is that we as people identify their aspects of ourselves that would we would prefer to have suppressed, right? And so I think the that observation is what has caused us to create these sort of I guess my perspective is kind of communitarian, right? Where it's the society was formed because we recognize there's aspects of ourselves that should be suppressed, and our bond is to achieve, sort of like you said, to prevent as much violence as possible towards each other, to minimize that.
Hmm.
Now, what
I
idea?
think
We going? Going.
I was going to say I think that's a pretty interesting way of looking at it. Come together in order to suppress things we don't like about ourselves. But I think that's a very good statement. And I would just throw on there, yeah, I agree with that, and I think the purpose should be as minimal of an oppression as possible or suppression as possible.
Hmm. So the purpose of government then should be we know uh, we know we should. Well, if Eric was here, he would argue that the best way to enact a sort of the most minimal suppression as possible of individuals' traits, but to keep it nonviolent, would be a negative rights framework, right? Where it's
Mm.
we recognize that we have a capacity for moral understanding and reasoning, and knowing that about yourself, you can assume that other sentient beings around you also possess that same capacity. So through that, you own your own body, and it would be immoral to uh, compromise another person's body, which would be property rights. So I don't have a. So that would be your negative rights, and a right being that which confers duty. And then your positive rights would be contractual rights, such as going to McDonald's, buying a burger, and then now you have a positive right to receive that burger because you gave currency.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so from there, that's where the negative rights framework, or the non-aggression principle, is supposed. What else, or should there be any other obligations to reduce violence? Do you think that businesses should have regulations? And if so, what?
Me personally, no. I think that it, each one of those regulations that comes along is basically a shifting of a moral obligation of the individual to put the decision off on someone else. I think it's a decision moving somewhere else. Some butthead moves a business in your neighborhood and wants to be racist and then all let certain people come in there in the shop. It's a very, very powerful thing. The community can put them out of business in a month just by the free choice of going, you're doing that, I'm not coming over here and spending my money here. But people don't want to make that decision and be the bad guy saying I'm not doing business with you for this reason. Therefore, they try to get the government to add as a proxy agent or act as a proxy agent in their stead to have them do what they just don't have the guts to do themselves.
I see. I definitely agree with you that. I think that the best way to deal with I think that businesses should be viewed as almost extensions of political entities, and political entities being the individuals within the society. And I think the best way to attack violence or to attack sort of discrimination, stuff like that, from businesses or political entities is to shed light on it, because I think the community will do itself, will
Hmm.
deal with it itself, right? So it's sort of a like almost like a social market type of a social free market type of view. But regarding like, I think the free market at its core would in general work for the for the benefactor of the community. I think that competition and capitalism is what it drives prices down. The sort of the competition is what allows businesses to not become overly, I guess, aggressive.
Complacent
Complacent, yeah. That'd be
and complacent with their position. Yeah.
um
Yeah.
go on.
I was just gonna say, yeah, I agree with that position. And I think a lot of the problems we have now are we have a perception in some circles of that the free market is the problem, especially when you look at things. Big deal right now is healthcare. When you look at that, people, well, we need government to take more control over it. The problem is they're allowing them to act in racketeering manner, which that they're doing the same things that the oil companies were doing in the 1870s and 1880s, and the government hasn't stepped in and applied racketeering laws to put a stop to that because their market power has gotten too large. It's it's a fine line between before it crosses over, and I don't have the answer on how to exactly control that to where the individuals within a community have the power to put a stop to a business's bad actions. So that's the hard part where I have a difficult time deciding or even understanding where maybe that line should be applied.
So when the line of when the government should step in, is that what you're saying?
Yes, in the perspective of toward businesses, yes, because once that they can get so large and have gotten large in our history at several times, railroads, the steel, a few other things, to where the banks in our lifetime, look at what happened in 2008 and how that was handled, um, to where individuals, even acting en masse, can't provide that social leverage to put a stop to unwise or unfair, or crooked business practices, however you want to say it.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that so did you say you didn't know how we should allow members of the community to deal with it? Did you say you didn't know how to do that, or do you have a solution as how we should allow that to happen? Like how should we allow community members and individuals within society the power to deal with with big businesses and corporations that are sort of dominating, so to speak.
Yeah, that's where I was saying I didn't know where exactly to draw that line between where government has to bring its force to bear as opposed to individuals acting in concert, boycotts, and that sort of thing, um, to put a little bit of normalcy back in the market.
Hmm.
That's a very because even it's a little easier today in the social media and that sort of thing for more people to be connected across a larger area. But you take somebody like I don't know, take something like McDonald's, and if they all of a sudden started trying to do something crooked in California, in New York, they're acting the way they used to always act. So the people in New York are not going to assist the people of California just because they're so far away from each other. And then that behavior spreads like an amoeba or like a mold. They behaving that way in California in a little bit each way, and they progress across the states. Whatever, leave the particular behavior up to conjecture, but it's the frog in the boiled pot kind of method. Uh, and once it's widespread, concerted action is very, very difficult from individual citizens to be able to do unless you end up with something crazy like you saw in the Arab Spring, Egypt, and Libya, and some of the civil unrest there where everybody just had to stand up at once and start throwing rocks. And I don't want to see that.
Hmm. How's your what do you think about our current tax plan? Do you think it's too much, too little? I assume
I,
sounds like you have a minimization of government in mind. So would you say it's too much, or how should we handle our tax plans?
yeah, I agree that it's. I think the biggest issue right now is we don't know if it's too much or too little because it's too convoluted. It should be our tax system should be simple enough where a third grader could do it using basic arithmetic. Whenever you have to buy tax software or hire lawyers or go down to H&R Block or something in order to fill out a form that you're required to by law, and you have to pay somebody else to teach you how to fill out that form, there's a problem. And that's where my main problem lies, is we don't have a good view of the situation to know what or if any action need be taken.
Hmm. How do you view healthcare? You think it should be privatized again? What do you feel about like the Affordable Health Care Act or Obamacare?
I think it's done nothing but drive up prices, and there are laws already on the books to fix the problem. There was an exemption, I think it was 1982 or 1983, actually, enacted by Reagan, or during Reagan's time. Obviously, Congress passes the laws, but exempting healthcare organizations from the Sherman Antitrust Acts. And whenever that happens, that basically allows them to charge you whatever they want to after the fact. I can certainly understand certain exemptions in exigent circumstances. You get in a car wreck and you're bleeding. You need service before you need to know what the prices is. But speaking from personal experience, due to a situation with my daughter a few years ago, you can call up and talk to people for hours on end and not get an accurate estimate or even what services are going to be provided. In any other business, that's illegal. If you go down to McDonald's and pay $1.55 for a Big Mac, and I walk in the door a little bit later and want to pay with a credit card, and they tell me it's going to cost me $11, then that's blatantly illegal. It's racketeering in any other business except for healthcare. If they were to address that in that fashion, I think most of the problems would take care of themselves in very short order.
I see. Do you have any candidates in mind for presidency?
That are running? Not really. But I mean, both of well, I have to. I wonder about Trump's mentality, and he's obviously, yeah, whatever. He's a fruitcake in his own right, but Hillary should be in jail, and Sanders wants to give other people portions of your wallet without. He wants to take $5 from your wallet and give it to somebody else, but when you only have $1 in there, there's
And they have
we've
the moral
we've
high ground, right? The,
yeah, or according to them anyway. The
yeah.
problem I think has become that our public official situation has become so toxic that anybody who's worth their salt, who would actually be good at the job, will have nothing to do with it. If you were a competent, able human being, you're going to be in private business somewhere. You're not going to subject yourself to about people coming on CNN every 5 minutes discussing what color shoelaces were in your shoes while you were speaking at a dog conference. It's just insane.
Yeah, yeah, it is pretty ridiculous. This election, specifically, I don't know if it's because like where I'm just now sort of entering the political sphere. Like I'm only 19, so this is the first year I'll be voting, but it just seems like this year has just been so hilarious. Like all these, it's just it's just been quite. I mean, we have a someone with what one could describe as like socialist policies running. We have like
Hmm.
Donald Trump running. We have Hillary Clinton, which I mean her like things like Benghazi and the whole private email shit. Just like I just don't see how she hasn't been convicted yet. It's so
Yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah. Anybody else would be in jail, and she should be, just for those things alone.
Hmm.
That they had a team ready to go to Benghazi, and she ignored the phone calls, wouldn't even answer it, is unconscionable to me as someone who's worn a uniform in my past years, that it's difficult to ever envision leaving them hanging out to dry. And you look at Trump, yeah, this is the greatest thing since sliced bread. And then tomorrow, I never said it was sliced bread. I might have intended it was rye bread. It's just it's like a Saturday Night Live skit.
It
It's
is. It is.
insane.
It's so like that's the thing. It's just like. like I've heard people describe people who are significantly older than me, and they've voted over the past 20 years, and they say that this is the first year that they generally don't see like any of the candidates as even possibly good. And I didn't know if that was like because if I see, I think I see that way as well. But I didn't know if that was because I was just now entering the political sphere and I was looking at everything objectively, or if that was because they literally were incompetent, you know? So it's really entertaining just watching all the shit get flown. It's just a real shit storm this year. Like it's
Yeah,
hilarious.
and the sad part is this is the person who's going to be running our country in 8 months.
Hmm.
While we can laugh about bread and circuses, it really should worry us. But what are our choices here? I it's a very difficult. In my time, the first election I voted in was I think Bush Senior and Clinton in 90. What was it, 92, 94, around in there somewhere. And this is by far the most distasteful pairing. It's followed second, I guess, probably by W. Bush and who was it? He ran against Gore in 2000. That was a bad one, but this one is exponentially worse. I don't know who I'm going to vote for because I like to go in there and say, well, I'm just going to pick somebody from the Libertarian Party or something. If but when I listen to them, they've become just whack jobs about nothing about legalizing marijuana and nothing else. Bring some other policies, okay? If you want to do that, cool. I'm all with you there. I don't really give a crap what people smoke. It doesn't bother me in the lick. But bring something else to the table other than saying this is what I'm running on.
I think it's funny seeing Gary Johnson call Trump a pussy. That shit was hilarious to me. Uh,
Oh, I haven't seen that. I have to look that up.
oh yeah, yeah, it's funny. It's on YouTube. Yeah, he's just like Donald Trump's a pussy, and then he like elaborates a little bit. But he criticizes. It seems like he criticizes one thing about Trump, where Trump says that he's for the free market, yet he has like protectionist policies in place, and he wants to bomb like the families of like terrorists and shit like that. Just like
Mm.
he I think the particular instance he compared him to himself about something. I think it may have been running a marathon or something, but it's pretty funny seeing him call Trump a pussy. It's hilarious. But yeah, Gary Johnson, libertarian vote never gets much attention really, and it seems like there's almost like a the media never talks about Libertarian Party either. It's just like it seems like there's almost like a push to keep the libertarians down. You know what I mean?
They had a shot back in the Obama's first term. They were running. I'm trying to remember who was running under the Libertarian flag at that time, but they got co-opted essentially by one of the right-wing Christians. I forget which, Huckabee maybe, not Huckabee, uh, and that pretty much let the sales out of it. They had built up quite a bit since my time in watching elections to where they just about got to the corner, and I cannot for the life of me remember who that was, but they essentially came in and raided the coffers to pay for campaign running for his previous Senate run or some other office he had run, and it lost credibility with I think a lot of the people who were voting Libertarian up to that point to going, what, you're letting this guy just waltz in because he's a big name, and now, no, that means you're just as full of crap as the rest of them are.
I see. Yeah. I think I mean I'm still actualizing a lot of my political views, but I'm almost sold on the libertarian philosophy. It seems like something that I'm primarily aligned with, you know.
I
Uh,
completely agree with the libertarian philosophy. It's when it comes to the Libertarian Party, well, I wish those two would align. I really
yeah,
do.
yeah. That would be the ideal scenario, yeah. But
Oh,
it's interesting how the channel, like a lot of the viewers that come to the channel are both like I some NTP of sorts, and they're also libertarian, and I find it so interesting how like that's our core audience almost. I mean, there are exceptions,
mm,
of course, but it's funny that I've never been exposed to so many NTPs and libertarians, and one and the same like at the same time since the incarnation or since I joined this channel, pretty much. It's great.
yeah, I think it's kind of goes with the course, and that personality, those. ENTPs, INTPs, both want to be left alone and will save someone from an external threat, but won't save them from themselves.
Hmm.
So it won't allow them to express their life how they want to live. And so I think that those two coincide really well together.
Hmm.
And it'll be hard to ever get somebody who's a perceiver to tell somebody else what to do, I think, at least the way I look at it.
Yeah, for sure. I see before I when I was probably like 17 or 18, I just assumed I was a liberal because my parents were strong Republicans. I mean, I live in Eastern Kentucky. Like this is pretty much as Republican as it gets around here.
I'm just a couple hundred miles south of you.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
in
you're
East
down in
Tennessee.
Tennessee?
Yeah.
Uh the there but my parents were just they weren't very inclined toward politics. A lot of their ideas were just picked up from, their friends and family. And so I just assumed that that I was just it was right to be a liberal because I was different than my parents. So therefore, that's what liberal is. Like they're not Republican, and I didn't had no real understanding. But I think this year was a turning point because you see a lot of things from the left, such as a lot of the sort of almost like an authoritarian left is starting to come up with the
Mm-hmm.
microaggressive shit and the feminist stuff, and it's just that's what has primarily turned me away from that. And I'm still not. I don't think I'm a conservative. But then I look at, I was so happy I found the libertarian stuff where
Mm-hmm.
it makes so much sense to me. Like the I suppose I'm fiscally conservative when
Mm-hmm.
economics. I mean, it seems right to me that when you follow like the negative rights framework, it all just kind of follows from there,
Yep.
and it
And
all
like,
starts to make sense.
what is it? They say physically conservative, socially liberal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
something. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
That's. I mean, obviously the Libertarian Party is more, or Libertarian philosophy is more than just that, but that's like a really good way to sum it up.
Mm-hmm.
It's sort of it's all about individual rights. I perceive it as.
I can't remember where I saw this at. I don't know if it was somebody talked to me or where, but talking about the extreme right and the extreme left. Really, the difference between the two is not on a straight line. It's more like a horseshoe, where the 2 points of the horseshoe are actually closer together than the center is, and most people are in the center, but the extreme left and the extreme right are really closer than they will ever admit to their wanting authority over and to control people. It's just control them in different ways, I think.
That's a good way to put it. Yeah, and I think the rise of Trump's campaign has opened the door for the far right philosophies to come in. I think the left has sort of turned into I think the far left is sort of actualizing itself now, and Bernie, I think his rise is an indicator for that as well. They're both for, like you said, or like you said, they're kind of close in the sense that they're both for expansion of government. They're both sort of authoritarian in thought and ideas and values. And it's really, like you said, they're closer on the spectrum than they want to admit. They both come from the same. They both think they should deal with it in the same way, but they have different values as to what should be um, enforced once it's dealt with, right?
Yep, I agree with that.
Hmm. When
It's
it's more important to attack everything on an individual basis instead of just these broad, like, sort of the authoritarian sort of just let's put everything through our values, expand the government, have total control. It seems just kind of it's ridiculous to me. It doesn't
yeah,
let the land be fertile for individuals to actualize themselves. That's how I see it.
yeah, it doesn't get the hell out of the way and let people live their life. it's the way I look at it.
Yep, exactly. I mean, that's exactly what it is.
And I read a tweet once upon a time from this Twitter account called "Shit My Dad Says," and it was about this kid who was typing in tweets that his 80-something-year-old dad would just come out and say stuff, and he says he was talking about one of the elections 4 or 8 years ago or something, and said anybody who thinks they know best for 300 million people is a gigantic asshole. And that's pretty much hits the
Yeah,
nail on the head in my opinion.
yeah, exactly. I mean, but that's exactly what it is. That's basically what the expansion of the federal government is.
Yep, that's exactly. It's just leave us alone and let us do our thing. And but I worry about your generation because I'm worrying if Orwell's prediction is going to become right. You know, when he said, "Just you want to imagine the future of human beings, imagine a boot stomping on a face forever and ever."
Now, the did you say Orwell, like as in like an Orwellian dystopia?
Well, it's actually a comment that he had answered in an interview, I think back in the late 30s, early 40s, somewhere around in there. And then they were asking him to predict what the future was going to be like. And there was a little bit of I don't know if he would even call it a philosophical difference, but I guess probably the equivalent of a National Enquirer disagreement between whether something like 1984 or something like, oh gosh, what's the other one?
Brave New World.
British guy. Yeah, there you go. Thank you. Brave New. Which one of those two were going to come true? And Orwell's prediction of viewing the future humanity was a face getting stepped on forever. And with the advent of technology, it's harder and harder for people to get away from pasts that should be forgotten. I mean, I really feel bad for your generation in that uh, 19, some of the crazy stuff I did back then, which didn't hurt anybody, but had it been written down and been in some file somewhere that some future prospective employer or something would be able to find, or if I wanted to run for office someday or something silly like that could be dug up, it's never going to go away. You know, my generation didn't have that. We didn't have that persistent everything about us. There were tales, you know, hearsay, small towns, people talking to one another, but that becomes like folklore, not fact. But people take a different kind of, they believe it more if it's written down, you know,
Hmm.
if that makes any sense.
Well,
Over
And I'm afraid
surveillance
you
and
can't escape that.
documentation of it.
Sorry, say that again?
The over surveillance on like people's personal lives and the documentation of it.
Yeah, a lot more now,
I
I
have a point
think.
to bring up though. If in the sense of surveillance, regarding surveillance and everything being documented, if this sort of globalized system in which people's lives are going to be more open towards each other individual in the society, and what you do isn't going to necessarily be protected anymore, do you think that's going to cause a society shift or a societal shift in which people are more sympathetic towards your behavior, or do you think it's going to be more oppressive?
I think it's going to be more oppressive. I think that's showing in our media today. I think look at Yahoo's homepage someday, and some person does something. This woman allowed her child in the backyard to play in BFE Maine, and it makes it to Yahoo's front page, and you've got people commenting it globally. Oh, she should have her kid taken away. Some of them, oh, I was just a kid just like that, except I was allowed to have a pea shooter and an M14. And all these people are making judgments over things that are inherently private to these people. And we can say that her future actions, that mother and child's future actions, won't be influenced by that, but I don't believe that to be the case. Now, that child, if that child sees it or hears about it, friends at school tease him or her, I forget which it was, but tease them about it, and that's going to influence that child's future behavior 10, 15 years down the road when they have a kid. So I think it's going to make it more impressive or more oppressive. I think that's conclusive. I would have a hard time. I'd like to hear the others. Do you think? What do you think?
I think that I agree that I think surveillance should be suppressed, right? I think it's getting to the point where it's way too it is at the moment it's currently it's already too oppressive, but if it goes in the same path, it will become too oppressive. I think the only way they could enact some sort of like strong surveillance system would be all members of the society, even the ones with political authority, should all have they would everyone would be subject to the same surveillance, right? That would be really the only way to enact it, in my opinion. But in general, I mean, I just don't. I want my privacy to be compromised on, right? It's none of the federal government's business what I'm doing in my room, you know.
And that's definitely inherently the INTP thing. Get out of here unless I want to talk to you. Leave me alone.
Yeah,
None of your business.
exactly. I just want to relax, you know.
It I just I see the progression of our society over my lifetime, and I think I saw somebody in the comments where they say that about every generation. Yeah, that's true, and they'll be saying it the next one, and sometimes that's not true, and sometimes it is. Um, but point being, where holy cow, I just totally lost my thought. It just went poof. What was I talking
uh,
about?
I think it's an INTP thing to want to have your own privacy. I think that was basically the line he thought it was leading up to it.
Oh yeah, what I was saying, and your point to where if everybody was surveilled equally across the spectrum, and then we would know where the basis was. Uh, we don't even have that now. We have more of a separation between the people in power and the people not in power here now than is any time in my lifetime.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
Back to the Hillary Clinton thing, if it'd been anybody else, look at
Oh
Eric
yeah, we'd be
Snowden.
fucked. You'd be
Yeah,
fucked if it was anyone else. Completely
so
shit on. Even if
or,
like he
or
wasn't even like. Well, I guess there's still evidence led to like. But I mean, even now it's like if it was like you said, it's if it was any other individual, they would completely been shat on, and I don't really see why she is somehow exempt from that. I don't know what they're waiting for. I
Mhm.
don't know if they're apparently they're building a strong case, but it seems to me like
Yeah.
the case is already pretty damn strong. I mean,
One quickie on that, and I'm going to go back to the other thing. I think possibly they're waiting, hoping that a Republican gets in office, so whenever they convict her, then she can't be pardoned by the Republican in office. But that's or by the if a Democrat makes it, or if they were to convict her now, it's a possibility that Obama pardons her before he leaves. But that's
that would be so ridiculous.
yeah.
I think
But
I heard
it's not
there
just a
was.
Democratic thing. I think it jumps back to like remember the Secretary of or the Attorney General under Bush with the whole I forgot to pay my or Gaitner's Secretary of Treasury, sorry, or not Treasury. One of the secretaries, Tim Gaither. I forgot to pay my taxes. Sorry. Well, how about you try that a couple
Oh,
times
you say,
actually?
see, I couldn't pay my taxes. All my money was in this offshore business in Panama.
All right, and you and I would be in
I
quite a
don't
few
make any
jail time.
money, It's just my business makes money over in Panama. I don't make any money.
So not a
I heard.
Democrat Republican thing, but just a cricket thing.
I.
I'm sorry I keep stepping on you.
No, it's all good. Uh, I don't know where I read it or like the legitimacy of any of it, but or that they might be delaying the indictment as a political strategy. So when she gets the nomination, and then they use it like before the general election.
Ah, get Trump in.
Maybe.
Yeah, just a conspiracy theory, maybe. Anyway, so we had good conversation. I really enjoyed it. I'm gonna be getting off though.
Yeah, I'm gonna wrap the video up here. That was pretty good. We went on for half an hour anyways. Thanks for watching Talking on Famous People. Liberty, yay.